Political Editor Andrew Clennell now. And Andrew, as Matt touched on there, that Defence Strategic Review out yesterday, and it's appointed not just to defence priorities, but I think you've raised this quite rightly the last couple of days as well. It's where the government's heading in terms of their budget focus as well, Andrew.
Only 2 weeks away to the day now, Kieran. So after the release of the Defence Strategic Review yesterday and the fact that $7.8 billion is being reprioritised over the next 4 years to pay for it, as opposed to new money being provided, we have a sense of what this year's federal budget is about. As the Prime Minister said to me last week, in this high inflation environment, in a bid to avoid further interest rate rises, it's about budget restraint. There will be new spending announced, but it looks like any new spending will be offset by savings.
It will be a budget that's focused on repair firstly, repairing a lot of the damage that was done over 9 years of neglect of the former government. But it also will be a budget of restraint as well. We recognise the inflationary pressures that are there globally, and we want to make sure that we put that downward pressure on inflation.
So just 2 weeks to the day until the second Albanese government budget. Let's look at what we know so far. It seems clear now that a decision by former Labor Prime Minister Julia Gillard to reduce the age that people, and this mostly affects women, can access the single parent's pension from when the youngest child is 8 will be reversed and changed to at least 12. This decision comes, of course, from a Prime Minister who himself was raised by a single parent. The recommendation to lift the age to 16 came from a quietly released report of the Women's Equality Economic Task Force. The PM mentioned this task force work in the context of the budget when he spoke to me last week, and Finance Minister Katie Gallagher was also asked about this on Sunday.
My government has plans for economic growth, job creation, new industries, making more things here in Australia, but we also have plans for social equity and for particularly dealing with gender equity as well. Sam Mostyn's done some great work on women's economic equality, and we'll be considering those issues as well.
The budget will look to do as much as it can within, the responsible fiscal environment that we are in to deal with addressing disadvantage and inequality where we can. Again, we're looking at the recommendations from the Women's Economic Equality Task Force. I'm a member of the ERC, but I don't disclose what goes on in the ERC. We are looking at the recommendations, and, you'll see some of those outcomes in the budget.
So in this budget, we can expect more defence announcements around missiles and the like in coming days as part of the $19 billion over 4 years committed to the Defence Strategic Review. We know the spend on aged care will be up and expect the same for Medicare and the NDIS. The increase in age for which single parents can access that pension will be lifted, costing hundreds of millions. The suspicion is to age 12. It will be easier for people to access medicines under changes to the PBS. And we suspect potentially a small increase to the rate of job seeker. Stage 3 tax cuts remain intact. So perhaps this will be a budget where the detail on the cuts is the main thing we will look for on budget night. There is also speculation there might be a lift in the petroleum resource rent tax, and we know that commodity price forecasts will be increased in a bid to reduce those deficit forecasts over the next 4 years, Kieran.